Welcome to the Brett Davis Podcast. Everybody, good evening. It's rainy, cold night in San Diego, which is very rare because we have like perfect weather. I'm very honored to have the mayor of National City, who we interviewed before the last election, I think it was, talking about some of the things he was going to run for and what he was going to do. And now he's back. And of course, he has Josie Flores Clarke. How do we define you? How do we describe what you do?
My right hand, my left hand.
There you go.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about a little bit about what's going on in National City now since he's gotten in and some of the changes that are going to be happening. Thank you both for coming out in the rain and being here tonight.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Love being here as always.
So you're back. Does it
I'm
seem
back.
like a dream in some odd way that you're back? And I mean, you're back in your office, you're back working. I mean, right? You've
Well,
always
we-
been working, by the way, because you never went away.
It never went away. Yeah. Yeah. As even when I wasn't mayor, I was termed out as mayor. I ran for city council. I was still on the council.
Mhm.
And but then after being out for one term, I was eligible to run for mayor again, ran for mayor. And here I am back in the saddle again.
And you love what you do. You love, we talked about this maybe a month ago. It was over in National City. We had a lot of people in the city that were there that night. And I said, you're not a politician, you're a public servant.
Exactly.
And
I'll take that.
that's the way I looked at it, because, and I didn't mean that in an insulting way. It's just you're so involved with the community. I mean, you're at weddings, you're at, funerals, you're at high school trips to Disneyland. I mean, you're everywhere, right?
Well, I'm clone number 3 that's here tonight. And
I've always said he's truly one of a kind. He has a passion for his community.
Can you hear her okay? Is she too far away? Is she okay? I want to make sure, because you seem a little, don't be afraid. You're amongst friends. We're not going to hurt you.
Brett, I'm not afraid of you.
I will testify to that.
Here. Okay. So, I'm sure he came and talked to you like way in advance. Hey, we're going to make this run. Are you ready for another run to do this? Because you're a very good team together. You work very well.
We're partners.
And that's hard to find. I mean,
It
I mean, I see a lot of people looking all the time. So you definitely have a unique relationship, trust. What was it about going back that was really not a no-brainer for you, where you said, I can do that. I love what I mean, because apparently you loved what you did.
Well, we never left. We just didn't have the title anymore, but we never left. We continued serving the community. We continued doing what we love to do. So it was easy to say, okay, let's continue with the title.
So have there been any, I mean, you've been back how long now? A couple months?
Yeah, it was officially, I think it was December the 13th. Yeah. But then immediately we went into furlough. So it really started in the first part of January.
Okay.
We were just using that time there at the end of December, just kind of get the office put together, physically put together type of thing.
Have you noticed any changes since you've been back?
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Oh,
different
yeah.
world.
So tell me without being too harsh. No, go ahead and be harsh.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
No problem. The political landscape is entirely different now than it was 5-10 years ago, even. And
I mean, all you have to do is serve the people. So why has that changed? Because of the political climate.
well, because if it's a case, I'll only serve my people, as opposed to serving the people. And, and my people make up, 5% of the population, but that's the ones I'm going to serve. And that becomes the majority type of thing. That becomes the real problem. These are, ideological differences. We're not talking about, ethnicity or anything along that line.
Glad you clarified that.
Yeah.
That's where we were going next.
Yes. And, so it's, it's got crazy, we see what's going on with Sandag, all the just insanity that's going on there, where they basically, that has always been the council of mayors. And now they're kicking all the mayors off and having council members being there.
Really?
And yeah. And so, yeah, a good number of the mayors, I got kicked off. The mayor of Chula Vista got kicked off.
Really?
The mayor of
Beach.
Imperial Beach got kicked off last night. The mayor of Vista got kicked off.
So who do they want on there?
They put brand new council members people that are brand new that have no experience at all.
So how did that
and
how did that change? I mean, how are they able to do that, and why did they do that? I
Well,
mean, I know why, because they want their
right.
group of people and that agree with them. Right.
And very much agree with this whole thing about the mileage tax. They want to get that passed through. So to do that, they want to have basically no one who will voice opposition to that on Sandag.
So what's going to happen to all these people as it is? I hear we're losing about a little over 800 people a month in California. Is that true? About 800 a month we're losing?
Yeah, it's something about that line. And the interesting thing is, if you read the paper, they will tell you that's because of the price of housing. And that's their big thing. That's driving people out. And to that, there's a term. It starts with 2 different letters.
Bullshit.
Yeah, that's it. Basically it. And
it's 2 words.
I hear they abbreviate that BS because, I talk to people all the time that are moving out of the state, and they're people that own their house here and they're selling it to move somewhere else. So the cost of housing didn't really affect them. They already own their house.
Okay, so people that have their house are not leaving their house here. They're selling it and getting out of Dodge. Or, excuse me, out of San Diego.
Right. And they're moving to another state and using their equity to buy somewhere else.
And they have money in the bank, and they don't have any. They have a cheaper. Their house is probably paid off.
Right.
Probably cheaper. Yeah. I would say probably taxes on their houses sometimes. Probably a lot of times. Right.
Yeah. And and
so this gas mileage thing's not going to help that circumstance at all.
Will not help at all, especially because it's, we're already paying gas tax. And so then they want to charge this mileage tax, and mileage tax would be okay if they did away with the gas tax and they use the money for roads, but they don't want to use this money for roads. They want to use it for things that are non-car related because they want to get rid of the cars, but they want the cars to pay for it.
So you're a little bit of a historian, actually a lot of a historian. And we had a thing in the old days called the Boston Tea Party. Mm-hmm. Remember what that percentage of tax was on the tea that got people in the United States kind of up and up? I
don't know what the percentage was, but yeah, and
isn't it a lot lower than what we're paying now?
Yes, much lower than what we are now, and it was basically the tea importers that actually pushed the rebellion.
They were dressed like Indians.
Yep.
Can I say Indians? I mean, some people get offended by saying things like that, but
but they did.
Okay.
But that's just a historical fact.
And I love Indians, by the way. I have a lot of friends that I love Indians,
especially if they're from Cleveland.
Yes, we all do.
Well, you can't say that. You can't say the Cleveland Indians anymore. It's a bad word.
I know, it's terrible.
You can't say Monty Montezuma either. I'm going to get you in trouble, huh?
Why not? Why not? I've been there before. But yeah, it's. But yeah, it is a new fee, tax, whatever you want to call it, that the people of San Diego County are overwhelmingly against. So they're trying to push it through no matter what.
So why, if people are hurting, do we keep adding more taxes? Because we have I guess we have a negative. They're saying that the states needs about $30 million. Is what I've been hearing.
30 billion.
30 billion.
30 billion that they're in a deficit this year.
30 billion.
30 billion. Yeah, they had plenty of money last year. They were putting out checks to everyone left and right.
Well, then I hear they're still giving checks out.
And they're still giving checks out, but that's basically off this last year's budget.
And where's the money coming for the SDG&E amounts where people can't afford to pay their gas and electric bills? Or the state's helping with that?
Yeah, well, the state did have enough money to buy new printing presses so they can print more money. And that's basically where that's all went.
Do you really believe there is a shortfall? Or do you think they're just saying that?
No, I think there is a shortfall. There is definitely a shortfall. The question is, how are they going to adjust for it? How are they going to make it work? And where are they going to get the money to backfill that? That becomes the whole problem. And
how does that affect National City?
Well, it certainly affects us because there's a lot of programs that we are involved in. I mean, the money goes up to the state and then comes back to us. And so a lot of that in the past, what the state has done, whenever they got into a financial shortfall situation, they just reverse the way that they distribute money out to local government, and they put more of it to state. Local government's the one that we're at the bottom of the food chain. So they just keep taking it up and moving it up to Sacramento.
Well, my heart goes out to any families or people that are struggling right now in the state. And I don't know how people are going to afford another tax. I don't know where these people are, the politicians that are making these decisions to put all these crazy taxes on. A lot of these parties that were supposed to be taking care of the people are really not taking care of the people. So, I mean, if that's my thing, I mean, how do they keep getting voted in? Why? And why do they?
Because they push out the advertisement. They'll tell you how great they are. They'll tell you that
And
they're
people
going to
believe
promise,
it.
and
People believe it.
people are gullible enough. And they're changing the voting system. They're making it easier to vote, which sounds like a great thing. We want to make it easy for people to vote, but they want to make it easy for people to vote that don't even take the time to find out what they're voting about. Where at least before, you had a greater percentage of people that were actually researching what they were going to vote for. Now we want to make it so easy that a person who has no clue about what they're voting about, they vote how they're told. And then we have the whole thing with the mail-in ballots, that there's a lot of ballot harvesting going on.
I've heard that.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it is. And you take a look at this election, you'll see that drastically. Because if you look at election night and the election returns that came in,
Night and day.
they were night and day over what happened in the 2 weeks afterwards.
Really?
And those were the things that got turned in at the last minute. People.
Oh, that's right. Because I kept bumping into you and I kept saying, "So did you win?"
Yeah.
And you really didn't know
We couldn't
because
tell.
you were waiting for the ballots to come in. Because Sarah and I had even talked about this.
Yeah.
I thought that was ludicrous with all the technology that we have, that we would not know the outcome of a race.
We were not told. We did not have any numbers really until December the 6th. And we voted on November the 8th.
Crazy.
Yeah. And that's just totally insane.
So what the challenges that you're going to have in National City coming up, of course, the gas tax is going to hurt a lot of people living there. Of course,
absolutely.
That have to go to work.
If they do the mileage tax, yes. And then, and even so, you have some different deals. One of the things is, I know the governor just was pushing this whole thing of, let's go after the gas companies that are gouging people, and that are artificially raising prices. And we're going to find them, and we're going to put the money into a pot. And then that money we're going to give back to the people. That sounds really good. But when you ask them, how are you going to distribute that money back to the people? So are they going to do it? Okay, since that's people who paid for gasoline. So are you going to do like maybe a refund on their registration or something along that line? No, we're going to give it to people that are of the lowest income. So they may not even have a car. They didn't even pay any of it. So we're constantly giving tax money back to people that never pay taxes in the first place. And this seems, that's the way of feeding into people in this, in the state anymore. So we've got this vicious cycle to where, like right now, supply problems for getting parts or anything else, or do anything. I mean, we got an intersection that the lights have been out for 8 months.
In National City,
because the signal box got hit and we can't get the parts to get it back operational. So we've got parts problem because they can't find enough workers. And yet we got so many people out of work claiming I don't have a job.
Well, see, I hear on a daily basis, I hear both sides of the fence. I hear that there's lots of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have other people saying they can't find a job.
Right.
So what's the reality of it?
Yeah. Well, you can't find a job that fits what you want.
Okay.
And instead of taking a job that's available to you, because the state will take care of you if you don't take a job. And
what do you've been very quiet about all this? Is there anything? I mean, any thoughts about any of this?
She's kicking me under the seat on the table. That's beside the point.
No, because we talked to a friend, an attorney friend that we all of us know, group today, that are working with families and trying to save them from going out in the streets, and also try to find a way to get them into a trade school of some kind or college. Like get into nursing or, but they're being vetted very, very clearly. So this person that we all know, and he's involved with, this is a new thing he's working on. But I said, I don't know how you're going to even put a dent in something like this, because there's just so much involved with that. I mean, look at the homeless situation compared to what it was when you were in office, where it's gone in San Diego and even in National City, probably.
Right.
I don't, and then the whole thing with shortage of housing, affordable housing. There's things that people don't want to do that we should probably be doing for that. I mean, why not go further east where there's more land and, get out of the main areas because it's more, you know what I mean? I don't know. You were involved with building before.
Correct.
What would the answer be for something like the whole, and that's a big thing in San Diego, because if I'm not mistaken, I think, isn't the group of mayors meeting with is it DC or the state this week?
You're talking about, yeah, the
Top
National Association of Mayors. Yes.
they only had the top 13 mayors,
Right.
Which I think every mayor should be there.
Right. But that's a different story. Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, because the problem is that they take a look and they, you have the biggest urban cities, and that's what you're going to have as your focal point for cities. Well, most cities don't fit into that category, and their problems and the way they deal with things are entirely different from that. But if you're only listening to that being the decision makers, even though they may have a majority of the population, they certainly don't have, they're lucky if they're 1/50th of the country, but they may have 30-40% easily of the population just between those 13 cities.
So the mayors, are they in California or are they DC?
They're meeting in DC right now.
Okay.
And that's, what do they call it? The Big 15, I think it is, something on that line.
Well, I think every mayor should be there. I think you should be there. So if I'm not mistaken, you guys hired recently in National City, is it a homeless type position?
Well,
For somebody to work with that situation?
And yeah, we're in the middle of doing that hiring. That hiring has not occurred yet. We're in the middle of doing interviews right now.
Now, what a job.
What a job. But and you have to realize that's not a person who is going out and is a street person who is out in the street. That is a person who is coordinating between all these different agencies, between our departments, everything else, because you got all these departments that are all working separate from each other. Where the police department, public works, your community services, then the county, and all of the different organizations. And a lot of times there's not the communication. They're not coordinated together. So this person is one who's going to be coordinating them together. And of course, we're doing some street work, but that's not a street worker. And so it's a different deal. But if you just put people uncoordinated out into the street, that are not coordinated up with everybody else, it's really inefficient. And so this is going to be, the best efficient.
It's like a Band-Aid on a situation. It's politically correct and sounds great, but the reality is, once they get in the mix of this whole thing,
and a lot of the organizations that are claiming, they're doing stuff for homeless, I've been out there with them.
Oh, I've seen you. I've driven by on the freeway. I've seen you out on the sides,
right.
In encampments.
Right. I'm out in the encampments, and I've also went out with some of these homeless organizations. And they will go, and because they've got to tally up how many contacts they make and all this kind of stuff, and to show that and I've seen them actually have a one of those containers of drinking water, of bottled water, and they'll be up on the high spot, and there'll be some homeless down below, and they will throw a bottle of water to each one of them and count that as a contact. And I'm going, what did you just do? You didn't make a contact. You threw a bottle of water at somebody, and so it looks good on paper. Hey, we did 30 contacts because we had a container of 30 water bottles.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's not doing anything.
So we have all these, and I couldn't even imagine what it would be to be in one of those nonprofits or agencies, because it is just a mess. Right. And I don't think there's an answer. I don't know if I've heard people say that this should be a federal issue across the country where the problems are arising. Because what else? California doesn't seem to be able to take care of.
California certainly can't take care of it, but here at our level, it needs to be a county situation. When I say county, I mean the county itself, county government.
County supervisors?
County supervisors, the county government needs to be handling this, because all of this, the funding for all the dealing stuff comes out of Health and Human Services. All the Health and Human Services money goes to the county. It doesn't go to the cities. And then the county keeps saying, okay, cities, you need to do this, this, and this.
They're not giving any money.
Yeah. And so why aren't you doing something, not just building up a bigger bureaucracy at the county, but you need to actually be we need more people out in the streets. You need more people out there actually accountable. And the other thing that we really need to do, and the state is just now starting to wake up to this because they didn't want to touch this before. There are some people that that should not be out on the street. It's not good for them.
Or anybody else. It could be dangerous.
Well, yeah, but they're a danger to themselves. They're a danger to the rest of everybody else. And at some point, we're going to have to basically have a system, and it sounds terrible, where those people are brought in against their will.
Wasn't it that way before?
It was a long time ago.
And Reagan was the one that released a lot of them back onto the streets.
And we got away from that.
And by the way, that's the one thing I can say Reagan screwed up on.
Right.
Other than that, I was a huge fan of what he did, but that was a big mistake.
It was. And at the time, it had some merit, but what it did, it had the long-term consequences
Sure.
of it, are catching up with us. And so you got a lot of people out there that, they don't want help. They
Want to be
are
off the
just,
grid?
they're totally whacked out. I don't know how, I think that's a scientific term, but yeah, they're whacked out.
Well, I think they are, and they're psychologically, they need help. They need
Mhm.
medication. They probably need to be taken care of in some way.
Right.
I think the hardest thing is the addiction of the drugs. It's probably part of it.
Right.
Mental illness is all huge.
Oh, it's insane. I was dealing with one individual there. It was alongside the freeway, and we went and we cleaned up his camp. We didn't clean out his camp. We just cleaned it up because he would go and take trash bags every night from the fast food places, and he would just rip them open, and all up and down the freeway. And it looked like a total wreck. And so we went and cleaned him up several times. We went over there one time, and he wasn't there when we first got there. And while we were cleaning up, he showed up, and he sat there, and he had a McDonald's cup. And he had a ballpoint pen, and he was writing on that cup the whole time we were there. It was about a good 30 to 40 minutes. And he was writing on that cup. There was only one problem.
There was no cup?
No, the pen had no ink in it.
Sorry.
This,
I don't mean to laugh at that.
I know it, but that's the kind of
Sure.
thing. There's seriously something wrong with this individual.
But there's a lot of them that are not from this area, correct?
Absolutely.
They're coming from other states.
They come from other states. And I can tell you,
Why don't
Father
we send them back to their states so their state can take care of it?
Well, because one of the problems is the way we count homeless and the way the count is here is the last place that you inhabited. So if you came, shall we say, from St. Louis, and you went and you spent a night in a motel here before you went out on the streets, you became homeless in San Diego.
Well, that's got to be changed.
Well, but that's how they count them.
Yeah, but don't you agree?
I agree.
So, I think what happens is a lot of these states need to get involved and take responsibility for people from their states. And this other law you're talking about, where they could stay in a hotel, that's their address.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Well, and
then the other question is how this is going to sound really terrible. We're probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but do you think there's groups that really don't want to see the homeless go away?
Oh, absolutely.
So that doesn't sound crazy.
Because it's a kingdom building for a lot of people. There's if you want to call it a cottage industry around homeless. And there's a lot of people that are very well meaning and do a great job, but there's definitely a cottage industry around homeless. And
I still think you're saying it very, very softly.
I am. I'm trying to keep us out of having the
well, there's a lot of
correct police coming in here and raiding us here right
now. There's a lot of good organizations, a lot of nonprofits. I'm sure they're frustrated in their own ways too, but some of those jobs probably pay well, I would think.
They do. I've seen some of the I've seen their pay levels, and you've got some of them bring in a lot of money, and the people at the top make a lot of money, and they keep talking about how they're a volunteer organization. Well, the people at the top aren't volunteer, and their numbers are high six figures.
I've been in some nonprofit organizations, and I've seen some pretty staggering things.
But now, like right now, we're working with one organization, is with the San Diego Rescue Mission.
Oh.
And they have bought a large piece of property in National City that had a large church with a huge amount of land around it. That's isolated, and they're going to be putting one of their centers in there. And before we approved it or whatever, I went and checked out their other locations. And be honest with you, I walked up, and here was a location that outside it looked like an upscale office building.
Huh.
No loitering outside. There was no cigarette butts. There was no nothing. You could not. This looked like the kind of thing you wanted in your neighborhood. I walked inside, and I started talking with their staff, and was really impressed with their staff. Their staff, very professional, very polite, very, seemed to have their act together, until I found out there was a little problem. I wasn't talking to their staff. I was talking with their clients that they were having working in the program. It was that impressive.
Okay.
But now this is a group that does not.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And this is a group that is faith-based, so they do not take any government money. So they are completely off the government.
Have you worked with them in the past?
We have done some work with them in the past, yes, and they have been very, very effective. But they basically get kind of the cream of the crop. They get the people that want to get off the streets, and, and have a reason to get off. May have some problems, whether it's anger issues or drug issues or whatever. They help them through that process, and then they get them into programs and have a huge success rate with a very, very low recidivism rate, getting back on the street. That's the kind of things you want to work with. And the problem is that doesn't fit all the homeless, or even a majority of the homeless. Majority of the homeless, I'm sorry, do not want help.
No.
And
So, but here's the thing. So, will there be a law you think we'll see in the next couple of years that will come into play? And we have a gas tax. I think there'd be a homeless tax for health reasons, because it's not only affecting them, but with the whole pandemic, I mean, we could get a whole different illness that we're not even aware of, because there's a lot. It's just not a really clean environment.
no, it's not at all.
And I think it's just like a volcano ready to erupt. These individuals are just they could get sick and get the rest of the population in some type of
Well, what I'm starting to hear, I think there's getting to be more and more of a movement across the board, across political ideologies, everything else, that we're going to have to start coming up with some kind of institutionalization
Right.
on some individuals that are just, they're a danger to themselves and the rest of and everybody else, to help them get away from that and get into a normal life. You know, and a lot of people, you know,
think it's wrong.
yeah, they, you know, they stand up for it.
It's against your First Amendment rights.
First Amendment rights, and we do say, well, you please give us your address, and we're going to send all these people over to your house. But that, you know, doesn't go over real big.
It went over really, really big in Martha's Vineyard.
Yes, yeah. But you know, the interesting thing was, you know, I can think back like 15 years ago or more. I would be on the East Coast, like at a conference or something, and I would go to my hotel room at the end of the evening, go in, turn on the TV, and here would be an advertisement for Father Joe's Village. And of course, they were trying to raise money, but they were showing all these great services. They're doing everything else. I'm going, why don't you just give them a bus ticket and send them to San Diego? It sounds like what you're wanting, and which ends up happening. Everybody comes here because you're going, hey, we got all these great services, everything else.
Sponsored by Expedia.
Yeah, and everyone, you know, exactly. And you had, you know,
she's like, why did I decide?
This was all out in East Village, and at that time, East Village was okay. That was the homeless area, but then San Diego wanted to put condos there. When they did that, then they started pushing them out into all the other neighborhoods.
So we know there's a homeless problem,
right?
Definitely needs to be fixed,
right?
We also have apparently we said people are moving out of the state, and I'm sure out of National City, but are people coming in too?
I'm sure there's some, but my understanding, we're losing at the rate, we're losing like about 800, as you mentioned, on that time period. And that's over and above, that's the difference between those that are coming in. You always get some people coming in, and
they're just not aware of how expensive it is to be here.
Well, that's one thing, but also they're being told that the government's going to take care of you here. You're going to get services you're not going to get in other states, and you're going to get you get weather that you can live in, where otherwise you're freezing your butt off. And
so Chula Vista has been known as one of I saw today somewhere that it's definitely renters are protected in the city of Chula Vista.
That is a new thing that they just come up with. Yes.
And that is, what's the difference between the renter situation in National City and Chula Vista? Because apparently there's a difference.
There is. And we've come up with some areas. I mean, one of the things we just came up with was the trailer park, basically a temporary rent control to try to deal with that situation. And it still allow for rent to be increased, but it can't be some of these huge numbers that are going. And the owners have to justify. I mean, if they're going to do, shall we say, put in all new sewer system and plumbing, and they've got to do a electrical upgrade, and they got to do, you know, all new asphalt and everything. Well, they got to pass on some of that cost over. I mean, that's the reality. But if you're just doing it because you're swapping, you know, your property swaps, no. And so you have to have some justification. National cities, the rents are still lower than they are in Chula Vista.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, even with their rent controls in Chula Vista. So, you know, and the area of the state that has the highest rents is basically Sacramento and the San Jose area, and they have the strictest rent controls of any spot in the state. So it hasn't necessarily helped out a lot.
Okay. So what do you get? So is there a need for housing in National City? And if there is, you probably can't go out. You probably have to go up.
Yeah, there's a need for housing everywhere. The problem is, how do we deal with that? And the other problem is with the interference of Sacramento that does not seem to understand. You got people who don't understand real estate. They don't understand any of these things. They'll see one city that has a problem, and they will do a statewide law to address that one city's problem, and it has ill effects on other communities because one size doesn't fit all. So just as a for instance, they say, well, some cities aren't allowing low income housing. So we're going to make it now so that cities cannot object to low income housing. You can't even go through hardly any kind of a permitting process or anything else. And so that we will force those cities to do that. Well, then the developer comes in and says, okay, the only way I can make these things low income if the land's cheap. Well, guess where the land is cheap? It's in the low income areas. So now we just build more low income housing there, and we don't build them in the affluent areas where the state was saying we're going to force them, but they didn't force anything. So we're concentrating basically all of that housing into certain areas, and we're just getting a greater divide because we got people in Sacramento, I'm sorry, that don't have business backgrounds.
Well, then again, like I said, I wonder if people really want a solution.
Some do, but others I don't think know how to do it, and so they just make up laws that sound good at the moment. And so yeah, we are going upward, but we're giving artificial numbers to go upward on. We have these things called that the state puts out called RHNA numbers, Regional Housing Needs Assessment, and so they tell each area, each planning area, and San Diego County is one planning area, how many new housing they have to build over the next 8-year period. It goes in 8-year cycles. And so in the last 8 years, countywide, we built 53,000 housing units. So we figured they came out with a whole new formula. We figured for San Diego County now it was going to be 112,000. So over double. But then the state says, no, the number should be 172,000.
Yeah, where are we going to get the land?
And so Sandag, who oversees this and sends the numbers back up to the state, the board voted on the 112,000. But then this weighted vote, where only a few cities get to overrule all the other cities, came back and says, no. Let's send them up to 172,000. Did that. The state certified it. And then the state has think tanks that oversee all their numbers, came back and said, you guys are double counting on a whole lot of areas. And we're going to refigure for all the counties. Figured for San Diego County, 112,000. The state said, well, it's already certified, so you're stuck with those numbers. Wow. So, that's a 50% increase over what it should be. But now we're stuck with those numbers. And if we don't meet those numbers, then there's criteria that kind of affects our funding and everything else.
So when you get apparently you have new business coming to National City. That's another thing we wanted to talk about. Yeah. So these new businesses, are they going to create a lot of jobs?
We certainly hope so. And a lot of them we know are. We just had a new business just open up, Austell USA, and that is basically a shipbuilding and ship repair for the Navy.
Oh, great.
And so they are going to be adding, they already have like a little over 100 jobs there, even just to do their initial opening, and they're going to be adding another 300 jobs. And these are all good, high-paying jobs.
Very good paying jobs.
Skilled jobs, everything else. And so this company is phenomenal. So they just opened up there on our waterfront. We have a whole bunch of new businesses coming in. I don't know if you've ever been to Texas Roadhouse, a steakhouse.
You got a Texas Roadhouse going to National City?
They are building right now. Right?
Oh, Sarah's eyes just opened
up. Yeah. All of a sudden, Sarah was over there, had her head down, everything. All of a sudden, she popped up. She goes, "What?"
So where are they going to put that at? Don't tell me where the In-N-Out Burger wanted to go.
No. The In-N-Out Burger's still going there. The new out.
Oh, it is going there. It got past all the
it got
torches
past,
and the people didn't want to see it over there.
People didn't want it, and because they don't like the menu and all this kind of stuff and whatever. That was a different battle.
It's a great business.
It is a great business. We have the one already there at 24th Street, and they go, well, it's got too much traffic. We know it has too much traffic. It's the second busiest In-N-Out Burger in the United States. And so we need another one to take some of that traffic off. And then we're adding another one down on the 5 down on Coronado Avenue, and another one on the 805 at Main Street. So is that
part of National City?
No, those aren't part of National City.
San Diego, right?
But that's going to divide off some of this, the demand.
It's just amazing that they keep building them and they keep just getting busier.
Yeah. They just get busier and busier.
Right?
It's extremely
high demand for those.
If you put them in the right place. That's the whole thing. And see, ours was basically the only one in South Bay. And so basically the only one south of 8, except for one out at Otay Ranch, and it was in an area where nobody goes, and it's very hard to get to. And so this is doing very well. So
Texas Roadhouse is going to be a National City.
It's going to be a National City right at the intersection of the 54 and the 805.
Where's that at? Is it over by?
Well, you know there where the Cornerstone Church is at?
Yeah,
It'll be right next door to it. There was that big yellow house that was right next to there.
yeah.
It used to be called the Big Yellow House Restaurant. They
Right,
just
I
tore
used
that
to-
down.
Yeah, I saw that.
They just tore it down here about
So it's
2
going to
weeks
go
ago.
in this. It's going to go
in that same spot.
Right, not too far from the LA Fitness and the Denny's.
Yeah, exactly. Be right behind the Denny's.
I think that's where you work out, isn't it? LA Fitness.
Yeah.
Every morning at 5.
No, you don't get to plug LA Fitness.
I gotta choose.
And
So, is there any plans for that mall? Because I see a lot of malls are changing and getting more modern with what people want. I mean,
Right.
Chula Vista Mall is going. They're adding a bunch of new things in their mall. I forget the name of the chicken place. It's the rival to Popeyes.
licking chicken or something like that, or chicken licking, or
What's it called? The one that you like? It's my wife's always talking about this. You said it's better than Popeyes, and I'm like, no, Popeyes is better. I'm a Popeyes guy.
well, yeah, especially if you have a side of spinach. But
Exactly.
anyway, but
They do a good business.
but yeah, it used to be called the Sweetwater Shopping Center,
Uh-huh.
and now it's what is it? Sweetwater Crossing. Now they call it.
So you're going to get that ought to change the dynamics, I think, of that mall.
Yeah.
So what else?
Well-
Any other ideas? Of
Well,
things that might go in
absolutely.
there?
That one there, just those in businesses where the Denny's is at, where the Big Yellow House is at, and where the Cornerstone, that is separate from the rest of that shopping center. The rest of the shopping center is owned by someone different. And they're looking at completely taking that whole thing down and putting all the businesses out to the street, like you see in a lot of shopping
Okay.
centers now. And then behind it would all be high-rise housing. And
What's your thoughts on that?
yeah, I think that would work out well. And but then of course you got Plaza Bonita across the freeway.
Do you have a thought on that? Something you'd want to say?
No.
Oh, Cane's. Cane's is
that's
in
right.
the
That's-
Chula Vista
yep,
Mall.
Cane's chicken, yes.
I still think Popeyes is better, but everybody has their own. So what are your thoughts about all these changes? I mean, can you see development like that where there's because a lot of the malls do need to have housing, I think, and they could supply, depending on the types of stores, those businesses by living in those. That's the way it used to be in the old days, right?
Right. Yeah. You basically walk to the stores and you had the stuff, and there's already a CVS and that type of stuff there, which you want in those type of areas. But then we have Plaza Bonita on the other side of the freeway, and that is the most successful actual shopping mall in San Diego County. And shopping malls aren't doing very well anymore.
No.
But that one has really adapted well. And their last modification was $132 million modification. And they're looking at doing another upgrade again now. Plus, we're getting ready to put in CarMax right next to them.
Oh,
And, so
wow.
CarMax is
CarMax is a good one for
Yeah.
that location. In that
yeah. So
area.
CarMax is getting ready to go in there. They've been spending the last couple of years on all their environmentals, and that's been the real problem. They're just about finished with that. Hopefully by the end of the year, they're going to be breaking ground and building on the CarMax. That was going
Wow.
on. And so
Well, why wasn't all this happening before when you weren't mayor? Why is all this happening all of a sudden again?
well, because we're
during
pushing,
a recession, even.
yeah, well, that's because we're pushing on this stuff. And the idea that business is how we pay for services.
I thought the state paid for everything.
Yeah, the state don't pay for nothing, and they just pay for heartaches. But
You've been very quiet tonight. I haven't heard any comments about
Yes,
what your
'cause he
thoughts
can't
are.
Stop talking. No, I'm kidding. Go.
you,
for it.
you trained me well.
Yes, I did.
So a lot of people don't know. Also, if I'm not mistaken, there was an Amazon presence in National City. Is it
They're
still there?
yeah,
Still there.
yeah. Amazon has their, what do they call it? Their something center. I forget now what it is, but yeah, it's huge.
Fulfillment center.
Huh?
Fulfillment center.
Fulfillment center. That's it. Fulfillment center, and that is huge. And I mean, we have Amazon trucks running through town like crazy, going all over the county.
So I've seen that. Did they take over the old theater, drive-in theater? The
No,
cars-
they just use that for some of their excess parking.
Okay.
The drive-in theater is still being used as parking for the swap
Swap
meet
meet.
because it's owned by the swap
So
meet.
swap meet does it still function?
Oh yes,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, that one still is very functional. Yes, but that's another one we have a development plan for, because originally where the drive-in is, that's where CarMax was supposed to go,
Oh, really?
but the drive-in is Chula Vista actually, and the swap meet, even though it's owned by the same
What is
person,
it like?
National City,
Is it like a line?
line right between them. There's a little road between the two of them.
Wow.
And so we had it all planned that CarMax was going there and Lowe's was going in where the drive-in's at, where the swap meet's at. And we had it all ready to go. We had it all, everything ready to sign. and we sent it over to Chula Vista for them to sign it, and it sat in their city attorney's office unopened for 7 months, and it killed the deal. So now we don't.
That was a while ago.
That was a while ago. So that we don't lose CarMax, we're moving CarMax over to this other site.
Okay.
And so we have that. We also have the balance plan, which is one that I introduced back in December of 2014. And we're just now got it through the environmental impact report certified by the port after all these years. And so now we're going to the Coastal Commission so that we can put in a whole series of hotels, restaurants, increase the public activities there and everything else into that area. And that's on the other side of the 5, closer to the water.
Yeah, that's over where the boats, the yachts are at.
Over by the marina, yes.
By the marina.
Yes.
So you're a big part of that whole development at that time. And I'm sure
yes.
You're probably thinking this all should have been done. The nice thing about coming back is you get that opportunity to see it finished.
Finished the right way. That's the other thing, because a lot of these plans, like with the balance plan, we got all of the stakeholders together and they were legitimate stakeholders. And so it was the longshoremen, it was the boat builders, it was the Pasha that brings in over 600,000 cars a year into that site. It was, all the different, the lumber yards, everyone, we brought them all together, and we went to the port in unison, and they all said, we like this plan. And the port said, this is the first time that a major plan has ever come before us that there was no opposition and everyone was for it. And so what we have now, it's a number of years later, and the last thing I want to happen is now people that are not stakeholders, that had nothing to do with this, come in and say, now we want the plan changed, because then we'll be in effect lying to the people that we brought together that all agreed to it and said, okay, they're the ones that did all the work to get it to this point. And so we want to make sure that the original concept continues to move forward and to make all that happen. But we got to get through the Coastal Commission. Then we can start building the hotels, restaurants, all the things that people in National City are wanting to see can be put in at that site. And then at the same time, we're getting a lot of small businesses come in town, and in 2 different forms. One thing is, we got a lot of buildings and people just put a business in there and just put their sign up and that's it. We got other businesses that are coming in and taking over a business and completely renovating it and completely putting a ton of money into it and turning it into something else. We have one, even, a lot of times cities don't like to brag about liquor stores, but we have one. It was a place called National City Liquors down on the Mile of Cars. And
2421 National City Boulevard.
Yep. They're about, between 24th and 25th Street on National City Boulevard. And it was just a little kind of junky little liquor store. They went in and are complete. I mean, they're putting a ton of money in this place, and it's going to be all high-end wines, high-end, tequilas that run into the thousands of dollars a bottle.
Really?
Yes, that type of stuff.
Wow.
And so you're seeing, even if it's stuff like that, you're seeing the upgrading and people wanting to do that type of stuff. And that is just, really impressive when you see people willing to invest in the community and do those kind of things.
You walk in there and you're afraid to really touch anything because it's just beautiful.
$1,000 for a bottle of tequila?
Thousands of dollars for a bottle of tequila.
$4,000 to be exact.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Well, actually, we have a bar.
$5
We
to
actually have a
$4,000.
bar downstairs that has those bottles, I think.
Yeah. And here you can buy the bottles. And
so they're going to be having a grand opening, hopefully within 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Well, hopefully you'll text me to let me know, and I'm
Absolutely.
not going to send
I will
it to
text you.
Facebook.
So you can go and drool over one of those bottles.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see the opening, and it's exciting to always see progress. And it sounds like progress has come back to National City.
Yeah.
And they are going to be offering 10% discount off for all National City residents for the first 90 days and 10% off for military service as well.
That's great. And of course, Mile of Cars is there.
Mile of Cars is doing extremely well, and they're looking at building it. And one of the problems is people will drive down the Mile of Cars and they see there's a couple of lots that are empty, and they go, well, Mile of Cars must not be doing good. And what they don't realize, like in that case, that was one where there was a Pontiac dealership there, and they had a long-term contract with General Motors. Well, then Pontiac went out. General Motors still is paying on that contract. Wow. It's a long-term contract.
Wow.
The heirs to that, they don't want to break that contract because they're getting paid as if they're getting paid big bucks from the old days, and they don't have to do anything. So it sits there vacant.
They're having a good time.
Yeah. If they sublet it, then they break the contract. So, but you look at it, you go, okay, well, that must not be doing it. No, it's a very desirable site. People would love to be on that site, but it's going to sit there vacant.
So most people just don't know.
You don't know on those type of things. So that's one of the things you have to look at.
Is there anything going on with, because I mean, I love National City, always have, and I love the job that you both do. Is there anything going on with the schools? Because I know kids have really gone through a lot the last couple of years. What are you hearing about the depression rate and test scores and things like that? Because I think all across the country, all kids were affected.
Yeah. If I could, one of the things that I really missed the most the last few years, and because of COVID, was not being on the campuses, because that's one of the things I love doing. And in fact, today I was in 5 different classes today, and I'll be in more tomorrow.
Read Across America.
Yeah, doing the Read
Surprised
Across.
you can still talk right now.
How come you didn't invite me? I would have read with you guys.
Hey, we still got 2 more days, tomorrow and Friday. So
well, you need
come
to let
tag
me,
along.
you need to let me know.
Yeah.
All right, I
Yeah.
just did.
Yeah. So I did 5 classes today. I've got four schools tomorrow. I don't know how many classes that's going to end up being. And then I've got 4 more on Friday, 4 more schools. That's just to do the elementary. The next week we got to do the junior highs. And, but it's great to be able to do that. But that was something was missing. And so you had kids that were either at home and just looking at a computer screen, or the only interaction that they basically had was with other kids, which is nice to have, but it's not healthy if that's your only basically interaction. And so it's great to have, adults working with them and being able and them to be able to see community members that actually care about them and everything else, and are willing to be involved with them. Even every year, our seniors at Sweetwater High School, you have grad night. Of course, grad night, you go to Disneyland.
Sure.
I'm the only real senior that goes to grad night. So every year I get on the bus with the kids and I go up there and I spend the night with them. And, it's, and we have a blast. And, it's one of those things you let the kids know, hey, you're important. And so I think we're going to get back to that. I agree. I think there is a lot more depression, anxiety. I mean, there's a lot of things because it just.
Well, it's not natural to be kept away from people.
Exactly.
I mean, it has an effect on you mentally. I mean,
it's like you lock yourself in a cave for a while and you start to go stir crazy. And a lot of people kind of went a little stir crazy.
Sure they did.
With this whole change that we went through in the last few years. And so we're going to work our way out of that. And one of the things that we're going to be giving a lot of extra attention to our kids. And I know at the city level, we're looking at really not only bringing back a lot of youth programs, but really upping our youth programs and to do a lot more stuff. One of the things is like we have an Olympic-sized swimming pool in National City. And
Palo Verdes?
At Las Palmas.
Las Palmas.
And even the Olympic swim team uses
Really?
it for practice and everything. Yeah. And
are you still swimming every morning doing laps? You still got out there and
Yeah, in my jacuzzi.
okay.
But that one right now, if you go there, there's not a drop of water in there except what rain hit it because
it might be full now.
It could be because we completely
full.
tore it out and we're widening it and we're going to put in a whole new pool in
Really?
there, and then all new stuff and greatly increase all of the programming and everything else. Doing the same thing with the gym right next to it. And so, once again, involving a lot more activities for young people in our city. And
I wish we would have more outreach with kids, almost like they had their own government and we could hear what they were saying. I mean, there used to be things like that when we grew up.
Right.
I don't see that anymore. Do you?
Well, I know when I was going to high school, we had a what they called a government day.
Right.
And we used one of the large buildings, one of the assembly buildings, and we actually had like a national convention. We had all the state flags,
How
all
neat.
the state deals. Everyone came dressed in a suit, which was really weird. And and we had all the speeches. We'd do a platform. We'd do everything else. We'd have elections. We'd elect a town mayor. We'd elect a police chief.
Right.
Everything else. And then they would go and actually for a day take over those shops in the city. And so I've been talking with the school about let's bring this thing back.
I think that so we're on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's important because you don't know how kids are going to be affected by that experience. Plus, it gives them a little more respect, a little bit of an idea what it's like to be involved with government.
Right.
And I think we've lost that. People are always talking about history. What about just learning about how our government's run? Let them find out what's going on. I mean, how things are, let them figure it out themselves. And I think it's a great idea. And I think it's something that would really help a lot of things too.
Yeah. And as it takes kids from the idea of being politically indoctrinated to the deal of let's practically take a look at local government.
Right.
And find out what it's really all about.
So, on a final note, is there anything either one of you would like to say about National City, or anything that comes to mind other than you like my show and it's a great show? But
What show are we talking about?
I just want to remind everybody about the grand opening that we're going to be having with National City Liquor store. So they're going to have, great gifts. They're going to have wine tasting as well, tequila tasting. So I'll let you know when that date is, and send everybody out there and have a great time.
couple weeks.
In a couple of weeks, yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, Noria City, we're certainly going to promote Texas Roadhouse and stuff along that line. And so a lot of times you're thinking, well, city, why would you advertise a liquor store? But indeed, when you've got a business that's doing something like what this one is doing, we can take pride in that too. And,
well, there's no telling what they'll do as a community partner either. They might be up for that, which I think when businesses do go to community, at least the way I remember them being, and I think it needs to come back. You just don't clock in and clock out. I think you need to be invested in the community as well.
Right. Yeah. And another area for young people is that we're looking at bringing back the cruising, but we'll do it as a city sponsored event. So we are going to be in charge of it. And
that's
so
a whole different, that's a whole different show.
Whole nother episode. That's a whole nother episode.
I've heard a lot of different things about that, and we can talk more about that.
Well, we're excited. We have a really good partnership with them. We're excited to work with them and bring in the cruising back with them.
Yeah, this last year it didn't work out very well because politics and everything else got involved in it. It was a mess.
And if I'm not mistaken, there probably was some people that are not even from the area that got involved.
Almost all of them were not from the area.
Okay.
But we're working with everyone right now, and we'd love to come back and bring both of them, both Jovita and Bird, on the show here with you.
Sure.
Yeah. And let people know what it's really about, and and what we are doing positively, because otherwise the media just wants to make, they like to stir it up.
Well, we never like to stir things up.
Never. We don't. Stir
we like to get involved, and we'd like to tell good stories about the community. And I'm very glad you're back. I know everybody else is. We've always supported you because you do care. You are a very unique individual that has always cared about the city of National City. You could have went in other locations, other places, but you keep going back to National City.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, and for being a public servant, which you are. And of course, you couldn't do it by yourself, because you have this wonderful lady that has gone through thick and thin, and you care about the community as well.
Well, and you asked her earlier, was there anything that she thought about as far as going back into the job? You didn't ask me that.
Well, I figured you already had your mind made up.
Well, no, it wasn't. My deal was with her. If you're not coming back, I'm not coming back.
That shows how smart you are, because I can't even imagine how much different the world has changed since you were mayor last time.
Absolutely. Oh, drastically.
It's probably like a complete backflip.
Yeah. You don't know it, but I'm wearing a bulletproof vest right now.
Really?
Yeah. A political bulletproof vest. Yes.
And it's sad. It's really sad to see how much it's changed.
Well, we want you to succeed. And for the people that don't want to see him succeed,
we will succeed, because we're in it for the right reasons.
Can I quote you on that? Okay.
Well, I have to thank my sponsors, who probably,
Absolutely.
Hopefully I got more sponsors after this show, because I always like to stir the pot a little bit.
Hopefully you didn't lose any.
Coronado. Have you been to Cornado's Bonafacetta, the garage? Really good Italian food. I don't know if we're going to
do that.
We're going to have to do that one of these times. Alan Kinzel, my friend, of course, one of the top realtors in Southern California. Adriana Gibbons, the Loan Queen. I'm sure you probably have heard that name before. She's been a sponsor for a long time. And in National City, your pizza place is Napoleon's.
Absolutely.
In Chula Vista, they have Labella's, which has been around a long time. Tony Razzo, of course, and the Razzo family, thank you for your support and helping us support the show. An anti-aging doctor who we all know, Dr. Belinda Silva. I think you've met her before too.
Yes.
She's
been on here with her.
She's a great friend. And is that what is that called on the? Okay, and of course my eyes are really bad. I'm not wearing my glasses. Mule Jewelers. You're going to be hearing more about, of course, these wonderful businesses. There's also a flower shop in Imperial Beach that we're working with. Do you remember the name of the flower shop? Is it Lulu? Is it Lulu something?
IB Flowers?
Lily Lou's. Lily Luz, I'll be in touch with you. We're going to be making a commercial. And of course, thank you for the beautiful flowers that you always provide. And we're going to be doing more events with her now that she's had her baby. She's going to be very busy, and not just with her baby, but getting flowers out to all these parties and events. Everybody take care. And of course, thank you to the Honorable Ron Morrison, Mayor of National City, Josie Flores Clarke, his Chief of Staff. Is that what we call you? Chief of Staff? What do we call you?
Executive assistant, right hand and left hand.
Okay.
There you go.
I wasn't sure because we were talking about chiefs of staff earlier.
Yeah.
I'm it.
Yeah, that's the whole staff.
This is the whole staff. So
She's chief of herself.
Everybody take care, and remember, be nice to each other. And when you're a national city, there's a lot of great things to do. Everybody take care, and we'll see you on the next show.